Good Friday morning. It is 9:30 and the sun is out.
Thank you.
Yay.
Here's what we are focusing on inside this half hour. We hear constantly how Seattle and Silicon Valley are very different places, but is that actually changing? We're talking tech convergence and what it means for this place we all love ahead.
And, oh my goodness, it can feel, if you read the headlines, like we are edging closer to nuclear trouble.
Scary.
Maybe worse. Experts, though, say, look, the biggest risk, one we aren't even talking about right now. So what is really the biggest threat out there? Might surprise you. We'll look into that coming up.
And later, cheating can destroy a marriage or any relationship, really. But what if you just gave your spouse permission to do it? Would it stop being cheating? We have a lot of questions about open marriages and why they're more popular than ever.
A lot of questions. And Tyler is behind the camera, streaming live on Facebook right now through the entire show. He has a very important question that we need your answer to. He's going to reveal that in 2 minutes. But first, after a long, wet, soggy, awful,
Torturous.
dreary, and I love winter in Seattle normally.
Me too.
This is just a really long one. We're finally warming up with a long stretch of beautiful weather.
I feel like we all deserve a medal for getting through this. But get this, MJ says we're finally going to hit 80 early next week. She's thinking Monday or Tuesday.
And it may seem like we have waited forever. That's what I was thinking for warm weather. But MJ says, nope, not really.
Huh?
You know, it's not unusual at all to wait this long to hit 80 in a year. It's just that last year was so warm so early, it feels like we've been deprived, right? So here we go, 80 and above at SeaTac Airport. Last year, April 17th through the 20th, we hit 80 plus for 4 days in a row. And last year on May 2nd, we hit a record at 87 degrees. So it did happen earlier last year. And the last time we were above 80 was last August 26th when it hit 92. So that means if we hit 80 on Monday, it'll be 237 days or 9 months since we are at 80 or above. That is a long time.
Yeah, that is a
9
long
months.
time. But so now that we are hitting 80, I think we should all care about June and how long this is going to last. What's it going to look like?
Well, it looks like we're starting to warm up around the region, so the long-range forecast for June from the Climate Prediction Center is, you can see the oranges here, warmer than normal for Western Washington. Yeah, I'm hearing applause out there.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yay! There you have it. Warmer than normal summer, which will be great.
And that leads us to Tyler, who is asking a very important question from all of you over on Facebook. Tyler, good morning.
Good morning. Everyone's talking about the heat. We want to know, what is your ideal temperature? If you could just pick one temperature for it to be every day, what would it be? And at what temperature are you willing to wear shorts outside? This is a big talker in my house. So head to our Facebook Live and let us know.
I have opinions about both of those things. In the meantime, fines for traffic violations and other minor citations can really add up when you live in a city, big or small, really, but Seattle definitely.
Yeah, so city leaders in San Francisco are proposing a bit of a solution, one that Seattle just might be closely watching: fines and fees for traffic violations and other minor citations that are based on your ability to pay. This from Bay Area TV station KRON. The recommendation was announced Wednesday by a task force created just a few months ago. So they looked into these rising fees and their impact specifically on poor and working class families.
Their conclusion, offering options for those who are fined but can't afford to pay. So the community service, payment plans, or even waiving fees for some people receiving public benefits. Other proposed changes?
Making sure those fines don't prevent someone who is homeless from finding a new job or a place to live. Also stopping the suspension of someone's driver's license when their traffic tickets aren't paid because maybe they aren't simply able to do so.
Right. So what's next? San Francisco's Board of Supervisors, basically their city council, will consider these recommendations and either adopt them or do something else. But this income inequality idea is certainly an interesting one.
And it's definitely one that Seattle will be watching closely, we would imagine.
That's right. So traffic fines not the only thing that the Bay Area and Seattle have in common.
Both cities also big tech hubs, even though many have argued each area is different. We are unique.
Unique indeed. The Bay Area, of course, home to Silicon Valley. Now, this article in The Economist makes the argument that our two regions are really converging into one big, giant West Coast tech hub.
That was quite the sell. I like it. Yes. Taylor Soper is a staff reporter with Seattle-based GeekWire. We thought we'd bring him on for a bit more perspective on what this really means. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for being back. It's good to be back.
So we can't, there is no argument about both cities being tech hubs, but how have they evolved over the years?
So they're really interesting, the connection between the two cities. And my colleague at GeekWire co-founder John Cook just coined this as the West Coast megalopolis. I think I'm saying that right.
Yes.
But this idea that they're becoming more and more connected. And Silicon Valley has, of course, Apple and Google, the big tech giants, but so does Seattle, Microsoft, and Amazon, these long-standing tech companies. And if you go down the line, there's startup systems as well. Silicon Valley is kind of the startup capital of the world, if you will, but Seattle's not far behind in terms of the startup ecosystem. So a lot of similarities, and now we're seeing the two kind of come together where folks are actually coming from the Bay Area. A lot of them are coming up to Seattle because whether it's cheaper cost of living, stuff like that. And we've also tracked there's something called the Silicon Valley Engineering Centers, and we track this at GeekWire, and it's basically the companies I mentioned, Google, Apple, Salesforce, Uber, Lyft, that are headquartered down there. They're actually opening up engineering centers in the Seattle area, mainly because there's so much talent here. So we're seeing this really interesting, combination of these two cities that are coming together for better or worse, depending on who you talk to.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. What are the good things and what are the bad things about this megaopolis on the West Coast?
Right, well, job creation is kind of cool, right? So right down the street here from the studio, Facebook has a massive office, and and Google across the water has a massive office too. So they're not just hundreds of employees, but there's thousands of employees and jobs. So that's cool. But the question are the problems, the tech industry that has impacted San Francisco, is that going to happen in Seattle, whether it's higher cost of living, more traffic, crime, homelessness? Are those issues going to pop up in Seattle?
Can we have more of those?
I know. Could it get worse?
And the traffic here is obviously getting worse, and there's housing issues. So tech industry definitely is going to have an impact, depending on, and we'll see what happens.
Aside from the impact it could have on, real estate and business and all of that, what about within the tech industry? Where do you see that moving forward in the future?
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities there, whether you're talking about investment or the startup ecosystems. There's not as much investment in the Seattle area, so a lot of times entrepreneurs will go down to the Bay. At the same time, Bay Area investors are seeing what's happening in Seattle, so there's a lot of money being exchanged there. People are traveling. I think that story in The Economist coined the flight as the nerd bird because there's so many techies going back and forth. So we'll see what happens. It's very interesting. We'll see if both cities kind of embrace it, if the Seattle community kind of embraces it. But you're right, Seattle's unique. We still have our own character. We're Seattle still. So we'll see. Are we going to turn into the next Bay Area? I don't know. I don't think people want that here.
Yeah. Quickly, because we only have a couple more seconds, tell us a little bit about this Sports Tech Summit here in Seattle. That
so we've got an awesome event, our second annual Sports Tech Summit next month in Seattle. The Mariners GM, Sue Bird, local superstar here in Seattle, they're all going to be there talking about the convergence of sports and technology and everything going on there. So see you guys there hopefully next month.
Yeah, sounds good. Taylor Silver with GeekWire. Always good to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.
Fears over potential nuclear crises higher than they have ever been. Really, in decades, the media focused on North Korea's nuclear and missile tests. But academics and diplomats say the true risk there may be overblown.
So this is from 538.com, a popular analytical website that's focused on science, economics, and politics. Recently published this headline: "We're edging closer to nuclear war." But the experts say the biggest risk is one we're not even talking about: the growing tension between India and Pakistan. Both developed nuclear capabilities outside the world diplomatic order. Both have secret plans that encompass nuclear first strikes. Tensions between the two countries remain higher than ever. As for nuclear terrorism, that's something you hear a lot of. Experts argue, yes, that's possible, but it would be very difficult to pull off because of who has the material needed and the technology needed to use it for a strike of any kind.
It is interesting that the media focuses on North Korea, which is certainly worth focusing on, and we really don't talk a lot about the India-Pakistan thing, despite all of this. So very important question for you, Casey. Can you speak prairie dog?
No, but I need to practice. I'm a little scared of where we're going with this.
Right? It sounds like a Dr. Dolittle idea, but a biologist in Arizona thinks maybe someday we could do it, and they already may be speaking their own language. He's been studying the sound of prairie dogs and the sounds they make for like 30 years. If you haven't heard them, here's what they sound like. So, researchers say that was an actual prairie dog language, that not only do prairie dogs make different kinds of sounds when they see a predator, they can also use individual sounds to describe the size, the shape, the color, even the speed of a potential attacker as they're headed toward the prairie dogs. For instance, they can describe, get this, a tall person with a yellow shirt and say that that person is approaching. And they have a vocabulary to say how fast that person is even moving.
Are you kidding me? Even a lot of humans can't do that.
So before this research, scientists only only knew that, yes, these animals did use sound when folks were approaching or predators were approaching, but they didn't know the specifics. By making digital recordings of the animal calls, then slowing them way down, scientists were able to analyze what they were actually talking about. I mean, right? This is kind of amazing.
I have so many opinions on this.
So this research actually could be something that helps us learn to be able to differentiate all those different eep, bop, boop, bop, beeps.
How was that again?
I don't know. That was really terrible.
Eep, bop, boop, bop.
So that maybe someday you could speak prairie dog.
I've always wanted to have a conversation with a prairie dog. By the way, don't feel bad if you were watching that going, I didn't know that's what a prairie dog looked like. I don't want to say who, but someone in our newsroom looked at that footage forever and was like, I don't see the prairie dogs. Where are the prairie dogs? Because understandably, in this person's defense, they look more like squirrels and chipmunks.
True.
But that's what a prairie dog really looks like. Are you copying to it? Bavisha's copying to it. It was our producer.
Sorry. I did not know that. It is amazing.
But you're not alone, B.
No,
You're not
it's okay.
alone.
I think prairie dogs are adorable, and I would love to major someday in prairie dog when I go back to college.
You're going to rue the day you said that.
Oh, goodness. How does it make you feel, though, to think about your partner? Think about this question very seriously. With somebody else. What if you both agreed to let the other do that?
No judgment here, but obviously it's going to provoke a reaction, right? We have a lot of questions about why more and more couples are embracing open relationships. We're asking all these questions and getting some answers from an expert coming up next.
And speaking of questions and answers, Tyler, do we have thoughts on the perfect temperature?
So many thoughts. People are going crazy about the weather, and that's going to be the big talker this weekend. Catherine from Oso says she will never complain about the heat. It can never be too hot for her. And a lot of people are giving us 2 temperatures that are their ideal temperature. So we'll take a look at some more of those coming up on Facebook Live.
We're back after this.
Brace yourselves, this is quite the topic. We loathe cheating in this country and celebrate monogamy. But do we maybe have that wrong?
Maybe a growing number of couples in the U.S. choosing non-monogamy as part of their relationship instead. So here, New York Times Magazine recently posing this question: is an open marriage a happier marriage?
So is it? Joshua Magallanes is a licensed mental health therapist in Seattle. So we should start by defining, what do we mean when we say monogamy?
Monogamy is an interpersonal relationship between 2 people who don't use sexual exclusivity as their primary focus in the relationship. It's maybe more emotional, but where sex is not just the only reason for them being together. So
Interesting.
So what is really going on when we talk about an open marriage? Like, how do you open up your marriage? Or like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Is that
right? And I think it's growing much more. When people open up their marriage, it really is an agreement between the 2, and it's consensual. It's agreements that they make up between each other, so that lying doesn't come into the door. I think that's what forces people to cheat, because they feel like they have to hide or and go behind the partner rather than saying, hey, you know what? I've been wanting to try whatever, X, Y, or Z, and go that route and be honest about it and to communicate.
You've worked with a lot of couples over the years. Are we really seeing more of this, or are we just now suddenly starting to hear about it?
Well, I think society plays a big role in that, right? As a society, we see monogamy as something as the standard and to hold. And in my experience, in my practice, I've seen couples who come in who have had that experience maybe in a prior relationship and have chosen to be closed or mutually exclusive in their current relationship, or folks who come to see me and want to open up the relationship. So I'm seeing it all over the place. It's not just one area more than the other.
Why do you think it is that we're talking about this? Do you think that it's because there's so many places we could be reading about it? Are we becoming more liberated as a society to discuss different forms of relationships? What do you think is sort of precipitating at least a bigger discussion about open relationships?
Sure. Well, I hope we're getting liberated, right? I mean, I think when we look at gay rights movement and things like that and coming out, it was very, people were fearful, didn't want to talk about it. And even sex in this country is so taboo anyway. And I think more and more couples are getting into relationships and realizing, wait a minute, I'm emotionally connected to you, and I'm sexually connected to you, but I also feel sexually connected to other people, and I think that can be okay. And so I think that's what is really pushing folks to want to be in this consensual, non-monogamy relationship or type of relationship.
I can feel people watching this who might maybe feel something that I feel, which is I'm a very emotional person.
Sure.
I'm extremely emotional. It's really hard for me to disconnect the two. Logically, what you're saying, I think, okay, yeah, I can see why some people do that. It makes sense. Are there actual benefits to it? And are there benefits even when you have one or two people in the relationship who are very emotionally connected?
Yeah, you know, I think there can be benefits. Again, it's my opinion, my professional opinion. But folks who might be dealing with abandonment and feeling as though going into this non-monogamous relationship with this individual who says, you know, it's okay for us to do this. I trust that you're going to come back, and please trust that I'm going to come back to you as well. So I think that could be a benefit. Jealousy, I think it's a great way, or some people have worked through jealous issues.
By opening up their marriage?
By opening up.
Wow.
How so?
Well, I think, you know, folks who open up the relationship see it as a non-threat. Especially when both have the okay, right? When we think about polygamy relationships or other cultures or religious communities who maybe there's one partner with many, and those many partners don't get to have other relationships, but that one does. So
there's sort of like a power balance that seems like you'd have to be navigating. Okay, so I know there are people at home screaming at the TV being like, monogamy is the right answer here, people. Sure. There have to be risks to this. I mean, it seems very fraught with a lot of risks because we as a society aren't good at this necessarily.
Right. You know, I think there are risks, and it really takes talking to each other and communicating truthfully. And being open to what your partner has to say and not coming in with judgment. I think there have been instances where folks, maybe catch their partner watching porn and have that emotional connection and need to just talk about it. Hey, what's that about? I notice you had this on the computer screen or whatnot. Is that about me, or is it about us, or is there just an extra need that you might have? So I think, you know, trust and also communicating. You know, when I work with couples in my practice, that's one of the most, probably the highest reason why couples come in is we just can't talk. There's a tough situation, there's a hard topic, and we just can't get around it. And I say, well, let's go through it. Let's talk about it and communicate openly. And I think some of the risks as well is if we're not being so truthful and having to go around and cheat, you know, there's a higher, I would say, increase for STIs or STDs. And what some of the research does show, and some articles have talked about, is that when folks are in this consensual non-monogamous relationship, that does go down. So I think there's some safety or, you know, some potential positive factors as well.
Very quickly, is there a difference for straight versus gay couples? We talk about that a lot, and we saw that when we were researching this topic, that it's talked about a little differently. Yeah,
you know, I think being part of the queer community, I think it's over-sexualized anyway, and many folks are open and wanting to talk about it, and I think it gets taboo when we talk about it in the heterosexual world, right? Like, it's not okay to do that. I mean, when you think about society saying, hey, you're supposed to get married, have 2.5 kids and a dog and a white picket fence, it's hard to say, oh, and by the way, we have multiple partners.
Yeah. Right, you can see why that is a difficult subject and difficult conversation. Well, like I said, we had a lot of questions, so thank you for sitting here and helping us.
Thank you so much.
We're going to keep you after the show if it's okay. We're going to talk to you some more. We'll air that this weekend on our weekend morning news over on Joe TV.
And let us know if you have any questions you'd like to add. I'm sure you do.
Yes.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate it.
You.
So still to come, we're headed into the 70s, maybe the 80s. Maybe the 90s in some places.
Don't even.
But what is the temperature that you would like it to just stop? Where would you like it to, when the mercury's going up, where's the point that you're like, that's it, stop there?
Right. And take a look at your screen for your Friday trivia. We don't know the answer. Our producer keeps it from us. So help us with your guesses over on Facebook right now. I don't know this one. Oh, no.
All right, take a look at your screen. There's the Friday trivia question. Average 4-year-old does this 48 times a day.
We guessed. Tyler, Travis, and I had the same guess, which was ask why. So, Bavisha, were we right? Yay!
Yep, that's exactly right.
48 times a day, the average 4-year-old says, why?
Yes.
Why? Question for you.
Okay.
As a parent, do you always have an answer for why?
No, I try to answer honestly because my daughter's 3.5. When she asks why, I answer, but she always asks why to the same question and like
Right.
going down and down. And we'll get to a point where I'm like, well, why do you think?
Oh, that's a good one.
That is right, yeah.
I just suddenly realized my parents always had an answer, and I'm not sure they didn't make it up.
No, but
I think they made it up.
we've been talking all this morning about making up the temperatures. No.
Yeah.
We're going into the 80s maybe as early as Monday or Tuesday.
No lie. We wanted to know what's your ideal temperature and why. Digital producer Tyler, what are people saying on Facebook?
Come on
All
in.
right, so there's a large range here from 0 to 90 plus.
90 plus?
Yes,
Zero?
so some people like it hot, and some people said as long as it's sunny out, I don't care. It could be 0 degrees, and that's fine.
Oh, okay.
What about the important shorts question?
So this is really important to me personally. 50 degrees is about my range, but a lot of people, including Elliot, say it could be 20 degrees out, and they're still wearing shorts.
Now,
and
are
I'm
you
with
talking
them.
to work out or like for daily life?
Daily life, just going out,
You
walking
both
around.
wear shorts?
Absolutely.
You have to pay me $1 million, and the temperature has to be above 85 to get me in shorts.
No.
It is the
No.
last thing
Incorrect.
on my body that I want to show anyone other than my eyes. I think a lot of women.
Well, Travis and I are both runners, and I was saying
Yeah.
I
Oh, okay.
cannot run in pants. Drives me crazy, and it doesn't matter if it's cold out.
And
You're
you-
running, you stay warm.
You grew up in Spokane.
I did.
lived in Spokane
I did.
for like 10 years. I think there's a Spokane thing also.
must be.
I will wear fleece up here, like in 70 degrees,
Yeah.
but shorts.
I'll go sleeveless in 70 degrees
Yeah.
and still wear pants or a skirt as long as it's not too short.
It's so
you gotta
funny.
get on the shorts bandwagon, Casey.
Yeah.
Right.
Most people, I will say, between 70 and 80. That was
Yeah.
the range for everyone's
That's
favorite
pretty good.
temperature.
I think like 78 is the ideal temperature with a slight breeze,
Yes.
a little ocean
Yes.
smell the Puget Sound
I agree with
breeze,
you on that.
and then I'm happy. In
Keep it
shorts
cool.
and a black fleece.
I'd also say 28 degrees is perfect on the cold
Nope.
side. Because then
I
it's
have to
cold enough
disagree
to
with
snow,
you. Yeah,
and it's
I
cold
don't
for a
think so.
reason, and then you have
Little
no.
too cold.
Boy, friendships are just
40.
dissolving left and right.
I do not want anything below
The
40.
truth comes out,
Then it won't
Casey.
snow.
Great. Go to the mountains for
Go
your
find
snow.
some new friends.
Where it belongs.
We love you.
Goodbye.
We love you. We're
Bye,
back
Casey.
every Friday, 9:30.
Well, you guys will be.
Oh.